Well, good evening. Hopefully you've got me loud and clear tonight. We're going to look at the current week, the current stuff that's going on, the week ahead, the rainfall outlook, the climate outlook, questions and close. We're going to get into it tonight. Hopefully it's not going to do a basis on me. Hopefully you've got me loud and clear. Welcome and thank you for your patience. And let's hope the technical gremlins are not plaguing us today. And Mr. Well, who's on standby, even though he's unwell, thank you. Again, that's a bit of a juxtaposition, but he lets me know that everything is going actually fine tonight. So thank God for that, Mr. Bezos and all your minions. Thank you so much for fixing it. Hope you are all well. G'day, Mr. Sharp. Lovely to see you. And let's go into it. We got a bit to do tonight, but we will obviously, the four of us can have fun together. Hopefully Bill will turn up. We're probably just a bit frustrated after last night. That's fair enough. All right, let's go into it. We have got stuff to do. We got lots to talk about, and I have also made sure it's all nice and compact, so I don't waffle on tonight. Let's go. Well, we've got current conditions. Let's go. Bit of background music. So last week we're going to look at, first of all, it was obviously 25th of May to the 31st of May, the end of autumn, and the end of autumn saw us, for the last week anyway, 2 degrees above average in the east and about nearly 3 degrees below average for max temps in the west, which is incredible given everything. But we know that it was quite cloudy last week. In terms, and with the rains, bits and pieces in that trough, the wannabe low, whatever it was. So, but again, looking at the mins, they were heavily influenced by, obviously, those cooler temperatures. Those warmer temperatures, the cloud cover and that trough and that low. We can see here that there was, the east had a average min of 17.7, which was nearly 6 degrees above average. And then we had the west on 12.2. Which was nearly 5 degrees above average as well. So you can clearly see that moisture in that cloud really impacted our temperatures in many ways. When turning to the rainfall, you can see there on screen, we saw basically missed out again, but we can see that northeast corner again doing pretty good. Sort of the southeast corner did all right, but this patch here, which is great, that's good to see the sort of rains in there because they tend to miss out on lots of events. Obviously, the BMs and their usual orographic affected well, and of course, we all know about the sunny coast and up there and what they did, but good on them. But otherwise, the rest of us were the poor cousins. Yep, that was pretty about the week. Mild, muggy, humid, felt a bit more like March than it did really sort of end of May, but overall, the west was a bit cooler, the east was again warmer and milder because of those onshore winds, and obviously the seas moderate temps quite nicely. Other than that was pretty about it. Hopefully everybody's going well in the chat. Hello, people have just joined us, which is Rage and Van. Let's get what we got. I saw something else. Sorry if I missed your name. I saw you pop up. Barry. G'day, Barry. Oh, we're going to look at rainfall, which is great. Just popped over now, which is good. You can see how it keeps you on track. All right, so this is... this is our temperature anomaly first. We'll have rainfall in a minute. This is the outlook for June, and this is for next week. Actually, this start of what we're in right now, but it's basically the min and the max temperature anomalies for the week. And you can see on screen we've got pretty cool conditions when it comes to max temperature. You pretty feel that today, and it's going to be even colder tomorrow. Just letting you know now, it's probably going to be about 15 to 17, maybe 15 to 16 tomorrow, and it's going to feel pretty much like winter, and it's going to stay that way right through probably to the weekend, when it might just pop up again to maybe late teens, and otherwise, it's going to be. Oh yes, Mr. Sharp, I saw that stuff about SA. I did reply to you already. I haven't seen anything in SA today. I've been head down, busy at work. Really haven't stopped to even think about anything. We can see basically this week again, cold temperatures up on the hills, and that's a consequence of this southwesterly change coming through. In fact, it's going to be pretty chilly all week in terms of maxes, and we'll look at mins in a minute. It'll flip over in a minute and it'll tell me chop, hurry up. But yeah, generally speaking, it is going to be a pretty cool week, and it's going to be very much a reminder that winter has logged on now for the next 3 months. And I don't know about you as well, you guys as well, but the last few weeks is like, oh, come on, like, I can't believe winter's close. I look out the window, it's still reasonably light, not getting too dark. And I just noticed today, for the first time, it really literally was like, I think was it maybe 4:35 and all that, it started getting, darker. I'm like, oh, okay, there we go. So yeah, and yeah, it's a bit of a difference, I guess. We finally get some sort of this winterish look, and there is that cloud band coming from the west too as well, cloud band tonight, which will be interesting, and it will bring some showers and stuff and make it actually feel pretty damn chilly. And talking about pretty damn chilly, we're going to look at the minimum temps. Now this is the min temps for obviously the rest of this week right through to Sunday, and you can see it's going to be pretty chilly. It says there Western Sydney 0 to -1. I'm not sure. I think there's one of the days where the cloud band tonight sort of does skew the temperatures a little bit towards being that sort of way. But yeah, generally speaking, it's going to be pretty cold for the week right across the basin, actually. And that is in no part thanks to radiational cooling, which is where obviously the sky is nice and clear, and the warmth, well, sort of warmth that we get during the day then escapes into space. But then there is a real batch of cold air coming through with this westerly. In fact, it's caused quite a bit of fun and games in WA, and I heard Mr. Sharp talking about it is in Adelaide today, but we're not going to see any of that, unfortunately. And there's a general rule of thumb: when you see that southwest WA or even SA gets smashed like that with these sort of systems, you can bet that we're going to miss out most of it. And that's really to do with that zonal flow that I was talking about, the west to east sort of stuff. We tends to dip as it gets towards us, or it gets blocked by the Great Dividing Range / Blue Mountains. We don't get a lot of it, but on the western side, they're going to get some great rainfall, good follow-up rainfall as well. So all in all, we're not unhappy about that, given that they went through that horrendous dry period recently. So nice, but for us locally, as you can see, it is going to be pretty chilly, and you're looking up to to pretty 2, 3, and 5 degrees below average right through until the weekend. And so yeah, it's time to rug up, and it's winter. Winter's come with receipts. It's logged on, and it's like, well, okay, you guys had a pretty easy May, and it's time to make up for it. So it's going to be nice and chilly. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying the new format, the new graphics. I worked very hard on this on the weekend, which is why I was incredibly frustrated last night. Anyway, let's have a look at the forecast rainfall this week, and this is what I was telling you about just a minute ago about the rainfall. Really, you can see it's skipping us a lot, and that's obviously again due to the presence of the Great Dividing Range, which is obviously along here. But you can see on the western side these really great falls here, which is really good to see given how dry it's been. And generally speaking, for us, you can see that's probably about between 5 to 10 mils. But I would be more expecting, on the basis of about, I'd say 5 mils if we're lucky. And that'll be, most of that will be sort of overnightish, and there'll be a bit tomorrow, but it won't be a lot. It'll just be like cloudy and a bit windy, but also cold, and that's going to be probably the main feature, as I said, right throughout the rest of this week. Nice and chilly, not that wet, unfortunately. And it says here the coasters may cop a bit of a extra bit, but I'm not overly convinced of that, because generally speaking, when we see these cloud bands come from the west, they hit the Blue Mountains, which is here, or the Great Dividing Range, and they bump over, and then they restart on the coast like that. And so what they're saying, the models are saying here, is that there's going to be some decent stuff forming off the coast along here. We're not quite sure if it's going to spill back towards the coast or it's just going to stay off the coast, so they're having sort of an each way, but I will be very surprised if they do spill back, and very rarely they do spill back, because the reason is because we have that upper level winds, the jet stream, really pushing things through from either the northwest or even the southwest, so it doesn't tend to hang around long enough for it to sort of spill back towards the coast. It's already escaping into the Tasman. And that's the breaks. That's what happens when we get these west to east systems, this zonal sort of setup I've been talking about. Conversely, like we've had the last few weeks, we've had this north-south or meridional flow, which is better for us because we get that influx of moisture from the north. All right, we're going to have a look now at the rainfall outlook for the next 6 weeks. You can see it looping here, but you can see it's not a lot of rain forecast. And if you look when we get to June very shortly, it's really is quite a dry period. June actually looks well below sort of normal, unfortunately, which is normally supposed to be our wettest month, but that's the way it's going to be. But there is some good news coming up after that, so get set for a reasonably dry June. And again, that is primarily in response to this zonal flow. the west to east flow. You get these great cold fronts that come up out of the south, clip, and then as they hit to us, then they hit down. They head down to the southeast again and get blocked a lot by the Great Dividing Range. So we tend to miss out quite a lot of the rainfall. But you can see here, the other thing to note here too is, which we'll have in our ENSO outlook soon, you can see there's really nasty negative anomalies starting to develop right across the northern tropics area. And you can probably guess what that's about. That's our friend El Nino knocking on the door. But it is what it is. We've had a few years of decent wet periods and that sort of stuff. It's been decently wet, so we've got to expect there's going to be, as usual with everything in physics, for every action there's an opposite and equal reaction. So this looks like it's our turn, but it's not all over Red Rover, I must say, and it's all not negative when we go to look at the rainfall outlook. So and they'll be coming up very shortly. But you can see how it's keeping me on track. It's all on frame, and it will nicely click onto the next stuff that I prepared. So I have to stay focused, and instead of waffling, I get to stay at the point, and I will get to your questions at the end of it. But yeah, that is really basically the summary for the next 6 weeks. Unfortunately, a little bit of a wet, and then this little sort of splash that we got this week, and then it's very dry. And I can see here that there's some that sort of wet signal here. You'll see that's towards the end of June into July, and I'll talk more about that when July comes up. All right, so we've got here's the rainfall outlook now. I have actually mixed the maps up. This one should be over there. No, that's actually correct. Yes, that one should be over there, and that should be vice versa. So this is actually August, and this is actually June. And you can see here what I was talking about June. You can see this real dry anomaly right down Eastern Australia. And again, that's primarily because of this zonal activity, so the west to east. And we don't tend to do very well on that. Also, again, just that lack of a moisture, because there's no real climate driver at the moment, which we'll cover when we get to the climate section. The SAM is sort of heading off into neutral. The IOD up here is pretty much in neutral, and of course we know what ENSO is. We'll talk about that soon, but it's in neutral, heading towards sort of warmer, but again, it's still neutral. So there's really nothing driving anything to push moisture on. So it's really the passing fronts, what they pick up. The SAM, which is a more sort of rapid shortwave type stuff where you'll get sort of peaks and troughs very quickly. The slower, longer drivers, which is the IOD and the ENSO at this stage, are just all trending very neutral. And we'll show you a bit more about that when we get to that stage. But otherwise, dry in June, so big X there, sadly. But then going ahead into July and to August, so you can cross out there and put A. You'll notice two very important things. These green splotches on the side or on the east coast. My separate ECL sort of forecast or look ahead type stuff is actually flagged. There's a moderate to high risk in both July and August for ECL activity this season, so that should be interesting to see what happens. And you can see the classic sort of signature with that again. Usually if it's a Tasman low, you see this sort of signature here, which is well off the coast, and you can see that, but you can see here it clips the coast in both months, and that's a good indication that there's something on the coast, whether it's trough or it's Tasman, Tasman low that maybe retrogrades, comes back towards the coast, or it's ECL activity. I guess we'll find out as we get closer, and obviously we'll monitor this as well. And this is also just a big asterisk next to this as well. This is actually the CFS, because it's out all the time quite regularly. When I prepared this, the climate models at which is normally at the the big climate sort of website. The name escapes me right now, but of course I'll remember it very soon. Which is based on EC. It isn't out to today. Sometimes they don't update. They don't update once a month on the first of the month. So looking at that, and we'll have that on next week's waffle, next weekend waffle, the up to date, and see what they've got to say for themselves. What's it? Climate. Oh God, I can't remember the name of it. I had it all the time, and then just out of the top of my head. But anyway, yeah. So that's really like the big asterisk. This is based on one at this stage scenario or solution. So don't hang everything you're gonna. Don't go out and bet your house on it. But yeah, it is looking like it's going to change. In fact, I'm going to look at that for you right now. It is the website that I get that stuff from is actually called Copernicus. Okay, so that's the site I get the other data from is Copernicus, and that will be out like any time now. And so I'll update that next weekend for us, and we'll be able to have a look at that. But otherwise, yep. So June, unfortunately drier, but July and August, looking good for us. But you can see the rest of the country is pretty dry, and that's another thing that does tend to lend me to the fact it's going to be an ECL, because you can see these telltale signs here of below average activity, and that generally indicates that we're moving from probably more that west to east type of situation, which we've got now, to a more north to south type of situation. So when we have the upper systems coming in from here and then picking up this moisture as it gets to the coast, and giving us the ECLs that we all enjoy, but obviously don't want any damage to people. But yeah, that's the signal. But we'll see what Copernicus has to say, which is aka EC, I think, going forward. But otherwise, so June, boo, green, July and August looking yay, again with a big asterisk next to it, and we'll update that again for next weekend. See, it's keeping me really focused and on the information, so it stops the waffling. I will have a look at, I'll have to say to everybody, chat in a minute when we get towards the end. I won't interrupt the flow at the moment. All right, so spring, looking a bit further ahead, and you can see here, again, it's not too bad. You'd think with a El Nino potentially building, it would be, pretty significant impacts for us, because it's spring when it tends to just start to sort of manifest and show itself. But at this stage, aside from southeast Queensland, which tend to have that dry period of time anyway in spring, we're actually pretty good. And you can see that telltale circular signature again here. So, interesting, hey? And then we're moving into summer, of course. Not with great detail, because they're so far ahead and it's only one model. I wouldn't go and hang my hats on it, but you can see this is the interesting pattern here for summer, and you can see the real impacts of a potential El Nino now across the tropics. A lot drier, but you can see that again the teleconnections aren't necessarily pushing down into southern Australia, because you can see plenty of places here where there's above average rainfall. So I guess we'll see what eventually works out, but it's not looking like negative. I think at this stage, when I look, January was a bit sort of dryish, but again, it's one model. Don't get hung up on it. It's more to give you an idea that it's a pattern and it's not all over Red Rover, as some people have been saying in in the media and that sort of stuff about, oh my God, it's going to be a mega El Nino and all that sort of baloney. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Well, for me anyway, it's not what they're saying. So let's go into the climate models now. We're going to look at this. This is obviously ENSO, and ENSO is obviously the El Nino Southern Oscillation. It's obviously something that measures the Walker circulation, and the Walker circulation is basically, this giant circulation here that basically covers the whole of the Pacific Ocean, and it really dictates weather across that sort of globe area. And you can see the stuff that mainly affects us is Nino 3.4, which is that area there. And we are looking for, obviously, the anomalies, the sea surface temperatures in there. And you can see on the data that's just on the screen here, the models are back down quite significantly as of, this is from the NOAA just the other day. So it's quite fresh off the old servers. You can see it's back down. It's not like saying it's not going to be, high, moderate to even strong. But there's no record-breaking El Nino there. There's no, mega La Nina, or El Nino, whatever they called it, or El Nino of death or some rubbish. It's looking like a reasonable event. But the key things I want you to really look at, and I think this is why the rainfall model sort of did pick up that sort of bit of green for us, is that you can see here these are the warmer waters as they propagate to the west. And that's, of course, thanks to westerly winds on the surface. And then what it does is, as it flows across from the west to east, and then drags across this warmer water from east to west. So a bit like the reverse type situation. Of course, it's one of the things that we do actually get here on the coast for us, is when you've noticed we very strong northeasterlies. The seas, obviously, temperatures are really cold, and you think, what that, so you have this downwelling effect and this upwelling effect. So when the northeast is blowing, we have an upwelling effect. So even though there's a beautiful warm northeasterly on the surface, you think the water should be cold. It's actually, because of the way the winds work and stuff, it's actually dragging up cooler water from the continental shelf up to the surface. And then, of course, conversely, when we have these, weeks and weeks of southeasterlies, you think, oh yeah, the water's going to be cold. Actually, you get this downwelling event. So it actually sucks in that warmer sea surface water from the north and northeast. And so the sea temperatures are beautiful. You think, which is one of the reasons why autumn is usually the water's so pleasant, is because not only that current, the East Australian current, I think was the name of it, dragging down along the east coast from up in the Coral Sea right down through us, is still sort of hanging around. And then you've got the sort of southerlies that start to push in with these, the seasonal change, still dragging more of those warmer waters down. So those ridges works in our favour. So that's a bit what's happening here. Now, the point I was making is you can see actually as it starts to get into late spring and into summer, that warm eddy withdraw back to the east quite significantly. And I think that's definitely what the rain models are picking up in terms of why there's some green for us. So it goes to show that the El Nino's influence, whatever gets going, does tend to only hang around with us for spring and maybe into sort of early midsummer, and then tends to pull back late summer. So that could mean a whole range of things. And I guess we'll work out, and we'll see what Copernicus, the other sort of climate models, say as well. So don't hang on to this, but this is straight out of NOAA as of just a couple of days ago. So they are now on El Nino watch. No surprises there, and there's quite a bit of subsurface warmer water over here coming. But again, if you look at the last few frames, you can see it was quite warm, and then you can set to see it shrink quite significantly here just in the last few weeks too. So it's not all sort of locked in, and it's really for a sort of a frustrating sort of climate sort of regime at the moment. There's really nothing that's sort of taking it by the scruff of the neck and sort of dragging the climate kicking and screaming to some one destination. It's sort of just swaddling and swashing around like backwash at the surf, really not making its mind up what it wants to do. So hence we're being very much influenced by these local drivers, and these local drivers are mainly the SAM here, and that's the southern annular mode, and the Americans call it the Antarctic something oscillation. Sorry, I never remember the second A word, like it's AAO, and I'm like, I never remember what that meant. Was Americans, it's AAO, of course. We are the SAM, and this is why you can see here quite a lot of variability, but generally trending in the last few weeks in the neutral. And we can see this big jump up to the north there in the last period of time, and that's into positive. Now, this time of year, it's actually very hard to actually say what that influx is, because if that was in summer, that would mean drier weather for us, and in winter it means wetter weather for us. So given that it's been a little bit wetter and that SAM has been there, I would tend to think that you would probably lean with that's more a cool season reaction, which is wetter, because what it allows more moisture to come in from the sort of the northern and eastern, and it sort of pushes the cold fronts down south, which is why what we've seen. So as I showed you before in the temperatures, it's been milder, but also we had that little bit of wetter stuff going on after sort of weeks and weeks of dry. And you can think back to April when it was dry. You can see where the SAM was here, really in no man's territory, with a couple of little ventures into very, very weakly positive, but really in no man's neutral territory. So I guess we will figure out exactly what this means going forward very soon, in the next few weeks. But in saying it, the SAM is, you can see it oscillates very quickly. So which oscillate obviously means, there's different wavelengths, and the ENSO and IOD, which are the slower, longer sort of climate drivers, they have very sort of long wavelengths, whereas the AAO is very short, sort of up and down. I'm really not 100% convinced they've sort of really explored this a lot yet. The reason it's not is because not a lot of money in it, because it doesn't really affect the Americans or the Japanese, so they don't really care. And they focus on the big things like the Indian or the IOD, and also, of course, ENSO, because they both affect sort of the major countries, and the Europeans don't give two tosses at all. They focus mainly on my God, I was going to say the Arctic. It's not the Arctic, but anyway, you know what I mean. The other ocean that's between America and Europe. Oh, what is it called? I can't. My brain is just slash. It starts with A, you know that. Somebody let me in. Tell me in the chat what the other ocean is. It's not the Pacific, and there's obviously the Southern Ocean, and there's obviously the sea and that sort of stuff. It starts with A. My God, what is it? Atlantic. Thank you. 8 Mithrandir. Sounds like a Lord of the Rings. If it's the Lord of the Rings, love it, Mithrandir. But yeah, thank you so much. The Atlantic. So yeah, they very much the European speckles in the Atlantic. So that's really it for the climate chart. As I said, climate outlooks again. Don't put a lot of. Actually, we might just go back to. We'll go back to the Indian, I think, because we didn't get to really have a chat much about that. Let's go put that there, and I'll just drag that across because I wanted to show you again. It is really not doing much either. It is neutral. The Bureau say they expect it to stay sort of neutral towards the end of winter, and then after winter they expect it may go positive, but they say that there's quite a lot of divergence in model outputs about that. And again, the Indian is not a massively researched sort of body of water, but there is some good stuff about that if you read online. But again, it's not really covering. The interesting thing about the Indian is that that's where most of our, well, 90% of our ECL activity does actually start the Rossby wave and sort of upper troughs pushing through the Indian Ocean. And that is definitely a place to watch. You start seeing the Indians sort of pick up in terms of activity, especially as upper troughs. You'll see them, like, cloud bands that stretch back for thousands of kilometers, not little short, fat little things that pump through. That there's some potential for some ECL activity for us. Of course, it depends upon a whole range of stuff. So do not run away thinking that that's what I said, other like that clown was the other day when read stuff. But yeah. So when I go back to again, not a lot happening in week, not a lot happening in week. And then we saw the Enzo at this stage, which is building towards obviously an El Nino. But again, they're not expecting that to kick in until August sometimes, which is spring, which is or end of into an early spring, which is typically when El Ninos and La Ninas start to make their appearance for us anyway. So really, we're in this really just blancmange, beige, Richie Benno, the white, the off-white, the grey, the whatever the cardigan that is scenario from the 12th Man tapes. Love that. That was so funny. But really, we're in that. So at this stage, it's a lot of local drivers like sea surface temperatures, all of these little fronts, these shortwave sort of cold changes that come up from obviously the south and catch things and sort of drag cold air out with it. But really, there's no massive sort of key drivers. So we sort of hang in there and see what the hell works out for us and just go from time to time. But again, this is one aspect, one model aspect. It's not all models aspect. So we'll definitely look at the other side of it, the EC side of it this weekend, and we will get a better picture about what's sort of to come. But at this stage, the summary is, of course, as we said, June is looking dry, unfortunately. So it's below or to well below average, which is disappointing because it's one of our wettest months across the year. But then July and August look to make that up. And the only thing I'll say is that don't forget that when we see lots of that little green shading, that could all come in one hit. So maybe like 2 weeks or 3 weeks of dryness, and then you'll get an ECL that'll bring like 4 years worth of rain in like 5 minutes. So again, we don't know exactly the how the the signal sort of works out. Yeah, we got an idea, but it's only from CFS, so I'll have more info for you this Sunday. All right, let's go to some questions. I hope you like the new format. Nice, informative, straight to the point, no waffly. The graphics are working, everything's working fine. Even Presentify is not playing up from the night. It's just brilliant. I can just draw here and I can just get rid of that for you. All right, questions and say hello to everybody. So I'm going to just hop out here so I can see everybody's lovely name. Let's go. G'day, Peter. G'day. Oh, Mr. Igo Camping, lovely to see you. Mr. Preston, lovely to see you as well. Pray Desopla, sorry, I'm going to ruin your name again. Sorry. And I did see you popped in last night. I do appreciate it. I'm so sorry about the tech issues, but I'm glad you came back tonight. I really appreciate that. It is great to see you here. We've got 8 Mithrandir. I do actually love that name, and I hope that's a Lord of the Rings reference because that would be so cool. And we've got Barry's there. G'day, Mr. Barry. You're not on sort of whining, tripping, sort of smorgasbording sort of thingy bobs today. So good to see you. Really do enjoy that your lifestyle. I think we can swap any day if you like. Just send me obviously a calendar invite. on Bio and climate forecast, it shows some wet weather mid-June. Any comment on that or any idea where it might be coming from? Look, I think they just use a different model. That's all it would be. I don't pay any attention to what the Bureau of Climate stuff does. Unfortunately, I look at my own stuff, and so that's why I said I'm going to wait to see exactly what the EC will say, or the other site will see. Copernicus will say it's either tonight. I think it's maybe available now. I haven't actually had time to check, but it's normally like it'll be either late this afternoon or tonight. Of course, it's the 1st of June their time, not the 1st of June our time. So it will be soon. But I don't pay any attention to the bureau stuff. The only thing is I get from them is I have to get their ID and SAM for them, um, because that's very hard to find any sort of other charts or data for both those things. It's fairly limited. As I said, NOAA have some very limited information about the AAO, which is the SAM, but again, not a lot because they don't really care. It doesn't really impact any of them in those countries. So it's just like, nah. But we will see. It's one, but one model is the model that was available to me because it updates more regularly than any other does. It's the other ones only update once a month, so it's no good me using, data that was issued back on the 1st of May to do something that's almost June or at the start of June. It just doesn't have any relevance to us whatsoever. Okay, let's go down questions. Presuming the warm East Coast current will help rainfall along the coast. It only does, Mr. Well, if there's an onshore flow. So when we get those days we've had recently where there's an onshore flow, absolutely makes more available moisture. But when we have a zonal, which is that west to east, it doesn't make any difference to us whatsoever. Because you think about it, where's the air going? It's going offshore away from us. So it doesn't matter how much moisture is sitting off the coast. If there's got nothing to tap into or nothing to make it useful, then away it goes. The only thing it does help for, in terms of when those cold pool activities, and we turn to more of that meridional flow, which is that north to south, the south to north. Of course, then you get that cold air going across lovely warm sea surface temperatures, and you get a trough, you get the Tasman lows, and you get ECLs, depending on also where upstairs patterns are too. So generally speaking, it doesn't help us a lot at this stage. Let's go to southeast. Being from the southeast or blowing towards the southeast. Stupid question, but I can never remember reliably. What is that? The wind's coming from the south, blowing from the southeast. If that's the question, it was in relation to the upwelling and the downwelling that I was talking about. Yeah, so southeasterly winds, so coming from the southeast, it causes the downwelling of warmer water from the northeast, and then reverse it, winds from the northeast cause the upwelling, so colder water from off the continental shelf from the depth, bringing it up. It's fascinating. I didn't realize that until a few years ago when I researched, and I was like, because I always wondered, well, like, that's beautiful warm weather. Why is the sea surface temperature so frigid? And that's the main reason why. 15th June, highest king tides in 30 years. That's interesting. So we're interesting to watch out for that. So we don't want any ECL around those dates. We can scrub those dates off and make ourselves not available. But again, it said CFS has us pretty dry. In fact, well below average for the whole of June. So I know the Bureau said that there's obviously something on theirs, but we'll see. I think that if I recall off the top of my head, quickly now, but the Bureau use their own model access for the stuff like that, whereas obviously CFS uses global models, so I guess we'll find out. Let's go good back down and see the 8 meter tides. Yeah, I remember those massive tides, especially in the monsoon season when you had great tides up and down, like they would regularly breach the shoreline and push up into sort of people's front yards and stuff. That was much fun, especially when this big. They actually get waves that they believe it or not when there's a monsoon around, or obviously tropical low / cyclone. Otherwise, it's flooded attack and crocodiles. And Antic, thank you so much for that. Oscar, g'day Oscar, lovely to see you. Norfolk going actually, let's go on. I missed most of the last minutes as typical Telstra decided to drop out. I'm sorry, Mr. Sharp, to hear that. At least it wasn't me dropping out for a change. Let's go. Oh, message retracted. Okay. My question is, we just need to keep the humidity to leave the taps running with so much lightning. No lightning and no humidity now for at least 10 days. So unfortunately for that. Question for you, Miss D. If I can, last year, of course you can. Don't say if I can. I don't offer questions. I don't want people to ask them. Last year, the SSW, yep, crash the line in it. Is there anything else to keep an eye on that could simply derail it? Absolutely. Um, the southern stratospheric warming absolutely could derail or make it actually worse, depending on sort of what teleconnections are going. I've been watching the SSW and it's actually been pretty quiet, although I noticed that the northern winter at the start of it had a pretty strong SSW event on the back of ours. But from what I last saw, and must admit, I haven't checked for probably a week or two because we've been sort of busy with other things. It hasn't been that active since. So, in fact, last time I checked, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and it was a very benign, standard, usual SSW. Well, sorry, not non-SSW, like a polar vortex. So that's good. And I would actually imagine if I look at it now, I imagine it's maybe actually decently sized, given that we've got so much cold air pushing north. So it'd be interesting to see that. But that's a good point, Mithra and Deer. Thank you for reminding me of that. I need to check SSW what it's doing. But I mean, as I said last time I checked, and those models are reasonably okay because obviously the upstairs air doesn't move that fast or that quick. Didn't have much happening, but I'll double check again for this weekend's. I should actually add that to the template about the SSW. That's a very good point. Thank you for that. And please don't ever think you have to flag, or if you can, stuff like that's. If I ask you questions, I want you to ask questions. Please feel free to just bombard with questions if you've got questions. Um, Oscar, my last question: isn't it dry air really good for static electricity? It is. Dry air is excellent for static electricity if there's a wind with it. If there's no wind, nope. If there's wind, absolutely, because if remind my brain to, but as the very dry air flows along the surface, the electrons in it tend to, I think they stick together or they cling together, whatever it is, and then obviously electrons are what creates electricity, and so that's generally the process. And being obviously very high level there, not drilling down to it because I'm grasping to the far reaches of my mind with a pair of tongs to try and dig that out. But I think that's pretty much what happens, which is why those days when there's dry air plus, winds above, you really want winds, if my memory serves me correctly, you want them to be at least continuously about 25 or more knots or 30 knots, to get decent static electricity for us. And that's when things sort of start, you see hair sitting on end, you sort of start to see bits and pieces. But absolutely dry air can help create static electricity. And in fact, I remember when I was younger at high school, in the deep, dark recesses, when Noah was teaching us, but you would often, synthetic soles on carpet and very dry air days, you could actually use a pencil lead and you can actually see the spark jump from the pencil leg into someone's arm or leg. So yeah, but we'll see this week. Try it out. It's going to be pretty dry air. Unfortunately, I don't think the winds are going to be strong enough, unless you're down in the Illawarra, then you may get some static electricity stuff going, but yeah. But static electricity is a different process to lightning or electricity generated in thunderstorms. I mean, it's very similar. They believe it's obviously the hailstones and stuff like that bumping into each other and colliding into each other, which obviously creates the charge, the difference in negative and positive, but different process because clearly it's not dry air in a storm. Although I do believe that the dry slopes you can get in storms can actually help create better hail, and also which then obviously creates more lightning as well too, because it creates the hail's not soft and mushy, it actually hardens up very firm and very hard, and so that when that smashes together you've got more chance of creating that uh, difference in charge between obviously negative and positive. But again, that's just off the top of my head, not necessarily 100% science. I have to go through and double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's the scenario. My name isn't just nickname. Call me Mr. P. Oh, well, I'm Mr. P too, so at least I can remember that. But you are Mr. P. You are more than welcome anytime, absolutely. And thank you again for popping in last night. Apologies for the tech shit, but we've got it sorted by the sounds of things. And hopefully the audio is nice and clear, and obviously the stuff on the intro and that stuff is nice and clear for you guys as well. If it wasn't, just let me know. But it looks like we've finally got things to a point where it's actually working okay. Um, uh, uh, hopefully it's in no rain as I'm already behind. Yeah, you'll be no rain. You'll be able to catch up during June, Mr. Mayor. You'll have plenty of stuff to do, and of course that bit of rain we've had too, I'm assuming would help grass grow for at least a few weeks because groundwater will be decent. So hopefully that turns into lovely green lawns for you to go and mow. Um, Hoping that you do the lives with the OGs like we did SDW, and I'm not. What do you mean? I'm not sure what that means, as in with like we used to. But yeah, does that mean lightning could happen when it is dry? No, because as I said, it's a different process. You tend to sometimes. if there's moisture and instability well above the surface, like mid levels, for example, and the surface is dry, you can still get lots of lightning. In fact, that's a lot of what the storms you see in the like places like Arizona and stuff like that, in the deserts, especially like the Simpson Desert and stuff in middle of Australia. You'll tend to get instability and moisture in the middle levels and upper levels, especially when there's like tropical lows and stuff around or the start of the season. But the surface is still quite dry, and you get these high-based storms, which are absolutely amazing to photograph and can cause lots of fires. But generally speaking, no, you don't get um, lightning from storm activity in dry. Static electricity never gets to the level that's needed to create lightning out of thin air. Um, da-da-da. Seeing that too, cool. Another one, winter storms. Last year we had some nice scoreline storms at least. Yep. Is there anything in the patterns that would indicate higher activity? Yeah, at this stage, what I've seen the patterns, I would say lower activity for that. While we've got this west to east type movement, then when we start to dip back into the, um, from the zonal back into meridional sort of south to north, which is what we have this time of year, then you'll start to see that sort of activity happening again. But I will note that this so far, the sort of like autumn and into winters for upper level cold pools and troughs has been probably one of the most active I've seen in a long time. It's just been annoying that the surface sort of hasn't been there to support a lot of that stuff. But we saw last weekend still fairly decent. And it was just again, it was that timing. The low went a bit too far north, and it missed out connecting with the surface. Because if it connected with the surface, I think we would have seen quite a different scenario. I think it would have probably had a Pasha Bulker sort of situation on their hands, to be fair. But that's the way it is. Um, the ECLs are incredibly rare beasts for that reason, because it's such a complicated sort of setup. There's a lot of ingredients that go into it, and timing is obviously critical, and you need everything to line up. Um, yeah, it is what it is. No tech gremlins. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Mr. Sharp and 8 Mithrin Deer. Um, Mr. Yates, hello there, our drone meister. Lovely to see you. And welcome. So happy to see you. I hope you're doing fab. Good drone weather for you coming up. Especially after sort of the change tonight and tomorrow. I'll be back into very beautiful clear skies. So it's gonna be good sunsets and sunrises with that lovely sort of lemon yellows and pale oranges and bits and pieces. And still cool, dry air does tend to make really beautiful, crispy skies. And you don't lose that definition because that moisture haze around. It's just really lovely to photograph. So get your drone going. Although it's freezing cold, of course, and you might lose limbs and get major shrinkage. But other than that, you can get some decent footage and stuff like that. So, um, so if there are clouds and it's dry at the same time, why isn't there lightning then? Because it's not just clouds that create lightning. It's you need verticality, not horizontal. So you need clouds to go up and up and up, and there's a whole lot of stuff. I mean, winter storms do have lightning, and they can have some great lightning, really clean white lightning. And because of the sort of there's less moisture in the air because the air is colder. But generally speaking, winter has trouble getting lightning, not because of storms or hail, because obviously the air's cold enough. It's because the clouds just don't get high enough, and the moisture is a lot less than you get in a warmer air. That's why you don't get the size hail that you really need to smash into each other to create the spark, generally speaking. And when they are due, it's the odd flash every now and then, not enough to, like you get in summer where you get massive sort of storms. So um, you really need like a very decent upper trough to be going to really create the level of lightning activity that you want to see decently. And that's this time of year unlikely. Some places, yeah, especially like in Southwest WA, which is a totally different setup to what we get this time of year as well, because they're getting those beautiful cold clean troughs with moisture coming out of the southern Indian Ocean, and then barreling into them basically with nothing but ahead of them. So they, when they hit lands the first time they do it, so they tend to amplify as they hit the ground, which means that they send air goes up, and it forms this sort of activity, and they get obviously cold air tornadoes and stuff over there as well. But we're on the back end of that. So, reverse in summer, we're normally getting that stuff coming off the ocean and that great activity, and they're on the back of drier end, or we're on reverse. We're on the back of dry end. And again, as I said, a good rule of thumb is that at Southwest WA and South Australia are active in terms of lows, cold fronts, rain and lightning, then a good chance that we're dry, boring, nothing much is happening. And that rule of thumb will definitely serve you throughout winter and summer. If Perth's going through, a hot phase, like it's dry, that means that there's a, deep West Coast trough set up, which means that we're likely to be, getting some showers and activity on us. And of course, if they're wet, because obviously there's the West Coast trough's broken down because of a cyclone or monsoon, all that sort of stuff, then there's a good chance that we're having a heat wave. Good rule of thumb to work through. Of course, there's always going to be outliers and exceptions to it, but generally that's the way it works out. Um, mm, mm, mm. You are more than welcome, Oscar. I promised you I'd answer the other day to answer questions, and that's what I'll do. Um, Camping first week in July. You should be right. I think when I was looking at CFS, it was sort of 50-50 about that, but I think we'll still have a bit of a leftover dryness from June to maybe the first week of July, so you might be okay. But I think we should start to see some gradual sort of getting wetter and that sort of stuff returning after that. But again, what I said could also come true. So like you can see that positive anomalies in July, and you think, yay, and all that will come in like the second or third week of July in one hit with an ECL. So you've got to weigh that up too. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to rain every day or every week in July. It means that July, at the end of it, will have above average rainfall in the gauge. And again, of course, big asterisk, this is one model. I will know more next weekend's update. Isn't that when you see the top of the clouds look like popcorn? Yeah, if you're talking about like the lightning and sort of cloud stuff, yeah, you're talking about cumulonimbus when you're getting into anvil. Anvil is when the clouds reach its mature stage. I think it's called cumulonimbus incus, if I remember, which is that fibrous-y sort of smeary looking. That's called an anvil. That's very high upper level cloud cirrus. Normally, it's hitting the very top of the tropopause. Which is basically the delineation between the breathable sort of air and then up into you start going into space, and then the moisture rises, hits that, and flattens out. And of course, the higher that cloud is, obviously the more unstable the atmosphere. And one thing I did neglect to point out too is that the atmosphere is never the same level all year round. In summer, the air above us actually extends a lot further up because hot air rises, of course. So you tend to see that line between sort of the breathable, like the Earth, the biosphere we live in, and the start of space could be 60,000 feet, for example. It's well up. But in winter, of course, colder air is denser. It's so that line can drop down to 35 or 40,000 feet. Quite a difference. And obviously, Mr. Wells, the airplane enthusiast and extraordinaire, but he'll tell you like the icing level too. But he'll tell you, pilots often will track the level where that is because obviously the jet stream activity will definitely be sort of near that is, and that good tailwinds or headwinds, whatever it is, they avoid headwinds and good tailwinds and save them fuel and all that sort of stuff they do. So the atmosphere size, the height that is not obviously it varies, across the seasons too. So which is another reason why that lightning in winter storms is rare, is because just don't get the height of those clouds. They may go up to like 6 or 7 kilometers, where in summer they can go up to 20 kilometers. And that difference in terms of spatial difference, vertically is incredibly massive and huge when it comes to generating enough, obviously, static electricity within storms or electricity within storms. The different current differences to create lightning. That's just the way things go. And so when you see a winter storm, as I go back to it with lightning, that's a pretty decent storm in terms of strength, because it takes quite a bit to get it going. All right. Don't forget the day marts. Day marts. Coldies tend to be wispy as well. They tend to be wispy. Oh, they can be the day marts. Oh, I've lost it. Oh, that's obviously a reference to Mr. Well. Yeah, they can be whiskey too. Like coldies can be. When we talk about cold, we're talking about cold air thunderstorms, which are different to warm air thunderstorms. Of course, one winter, one summer. It can be. They can be like that smeary look too, and they can also be like really just chunky cotton wool. I think one of the most beautiful scenes you can see is that when there's a ACL potentially coming, as you look off the coast, you'll see all this fat cumulus congested, which is like this big like batches of cotton wool, and then those sort of starting to push up a bit further high up in the atmosphere. Beautiful, and the setting sun sort of lights these things up. When you sort of see that off the coast, there's cold air around, and it's creating very significant instability because, of course, that will be seen over the sea more quickly than over land at that time of year because the sea is obviously warmer and more moisture. So you'll see, air start to rise very quickly. When you see clouds boiling like that, air is rising very quickly. So that's why it's a good sort of visual thermometer or test or canary in the cage type scenario to let you know that there's something afoot. Now, not always us, of course. It might move up and become a Tasman low, but definitely good visual sign to think, need to keep an eye on what's going on with the weather. All right. Well, if that is all your questions, it has been fantastic to have your company. I really do appreciate it. I'm so glad that tech issues have not got in the way, and it's been actually a great stream tonight. I really enjoyed everybody's vibe, and there's been great questions, and we've had really appreciate that. So definitely catch you next Sunday at 6 for the Weather Waffle. And hopefully it's been not so much waffle, but more weather this time around, which is great. And of course, if anything pops up during the week that's going to be nasty or out of the blue, of course, we'll always get back to sort of doing lives and if you updating with that. But otherwise, pleasure of company. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give a like. Max, Mr. Well, the moderator tells me there's only been 2 likes on the video at this stage in the stream. So we'll really appreciate if you can give some likes because that obviously sends the message to YouTube. So please, when I ask you for likes, share, subscribe, that stuff, it's for a reason. It's because then I can milk Jeff Bezos' pocket as well as Mark Zuckerberg's. But obviously, with YouTube, it's a lot for get monetization and this sort of stuff. So we'll just be in for the long haul. Otherwise, we'll have some news this week about the WhatsApp group for subscribers, bits and pieces, special subscribers that's coming out. It's already set ready to go. Because with the tech issues last night, I had to focus on fixing them, but it's basically ready to go. So I'll have more news about that for everybody. Otherwise, been a pleasure. Have a great Monday night and Tuesday. Stay rugged up. It is going to be chilly tomorrow, and it will feel like every single degree of winter. And I should issue a shrinkage alert. But otherwise, and that is, thank you so much for your company and have a great night.